Good morning. Today we are finishing up with our unit 4. We have CO26. I can determine an appropriate display for a set of data. So we've learned all the different graphing ways to graph. We need to decide which one works for which type of data set. So if we look, we learned about that bar graph. We're going to use a bar graph to display data in distinct categories. A line graph we use to display data over time. The stem and leaf plot we use to group data into ordered lists. Our box and whisker plot used to display how data are spread out. So those extremes and the quartiles. Then the histogram is used to compare the frequencies of data that fall in equal intervals. So we talked about that, how those intervals need to be the same amount of spacing each time. So we need to think about what type of data we would use. If a professional bowler wants to display his scores for the year without displaying individual data, what data displays should he use? What do you think would work to display his scores over the year? Zoe?
Line graph?
Yeah, the line plot could work. So, or the line graph, because that's over time. What else might work? Tristan?
What about a stem and leaf plot?
Yeah, the stem and leaf plot would also work. So it's not that just only one works. Sometimes we could have more than one. Because that's data that was in ordered lists. So we had each of those scores in those lists, so we could do that stem and leaf plot. He scored a 110, he scored a 111, a 117. So we could do the stem with the different leaves on it. All right, so let's look at our next one. Identifying misleading displays. I'm going to move this up. You need to be able to identify potentially misleading data displays so that you can interpret them correctly. So if we can have some different data displays, we need to be able to know how to read them. So if we have a line graph that looks like this, all right, so here is my line graph. Can anybody tell what might be misleading that we need to notice when we're going to draw a conclusion from this graph? Look at all the different parts of the graph. There's something to notice on there. Tristan? It doesn't start at the 0. We've got a 0 here, and then you'll notice that there was this little squiggle break, and then it jumps up to 50. That little squiggle break says that we're not putting in all those lower numbers because that would be, our graph would start way down here and it would take up too much space. We don't want our graph having to take up all that extra space. So we put that little squiggle there to show that there's a break in our numbering for that vertical axis. And we need to notice that we're going to start at the 50 and go up in regular intervals from there. So that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at those graphs. Look to see how it's numbered. Look at that vertical and horizontal axis so you can catch any little thing like that, because that might change the way that you read the graph. So we need to be careful for those potentially misleading things. So it's a pretty short lesson today. Remember, tomorrow is our practice test. Today we're just kind of reviewing those different graphs that we've done. Tomorrow is a practice test on all these graphs. Remember that mean, median, and mode. We also are going to have the real test on Friday. Well, yeah, because it's Math and Art Day, so it's a short class today. So to my friends at home, we will say goodbye.